Hello, I'm Yusuf Aram, and welcome to this special edition of Straight Talk. I'm here in Kazan, Russia, where the latest summit of the BRICS leaders is taking place. Join me as I sit down with Dmitry Peskov, the press secretary for the Russian president, to get his take on the BRICS' growing influence and Turkey's possible membership. First formed back in 2009, the BRICS had humble beginnings as an informal club of like-minded nations looking to bring more balance and fairness to the world. And now, this group is looking to expand. Dmitry Peskov, press secretary for Russian President Vladimir Putin, said at this year's summit that there's no obstacle for anyone wanting to join BRICS. Mr. Peskov, a seasoned diplomat and press advisor to President Putin, took up his first overseas posting in 1990 at the then Soviet embassy in Ankara. After serving in the foreign ministry through the 90s, Mr. Peskov was appointed the presidential press secretary position in 2012. Since then, he's been one of the most familiar faces from the Russian government in explaining the Kremlin's viewpoint. I sat down with Dmitry Peskov at the BRICS summit in Kazan to get his take on the group's future goals, Turkey's possible membership, and the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, thank you for joining me on the sidelines of the BRICS. Now, I want to get right into it. I know you're very busy. The BRICS, since it's been formed to the present day, the evolution of it, and where it's going in the future, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, BRICS is not an organization. It's not an international organization. It's rather a club. A club that unites countries sharing the same values, sharing the same vision of the model of development, sharing the same understanding of necessity of taking into account each other's concern, of creating favorable conditions for each other's national interests, thus tending to act jointly and to create joint platforms for cooperation. Because BRICS, if you pay attention to that, it doesn't have any uniting documents, obligatory documents, like charter or whatever. So, and that's, to a great extent, that's a privilege of BRICS, because it unites countries with the relevant political will. So it started like quite a humble initiative of Russia, India, and China. So it was RIC, then it was Brazil, it was BRIC, then it was South Africa, it was BRICS, and now we have about 30 states who are showing interest towards joining BRICS, towards joining the process, towards diving into atmosphere of cooperation of BRICS.
Do you think that flexibility that you talked about, that there's no uniting documents, is what makes it attractive to other members, especially with the BRICS
At this stage, yes. At this stage, yes, because BRICS, it's a union, let's say it's an institution without any leading power. It grants an atmosphere of equal rights, an atmosphere of I would say, a fair approach to each other. And that is what of great value for all the participants.
I think one of the big questions, especially at last year's BRICS summit, definitely this year's summit obviously, is going to be, is there a BRICS currency coming? Is there a cash transfer system to rival SWIFT? Something to break the Western hegemonia of the financial markets, of the US dollar dominance, euro dominance. So is this coming?
Well, BRICS is not tending to rival anyone or any organization. This is another important characteristic of BRICS. And BRICS is not working on any project that is tending to rival any other system. So there are no plans to create anything that would rival SWIFT. But there are some projects, some thoughts among the participating states to create certain investment platforms with a broader involvement of digital money, thus giving an opportunity to the countries to invest more effectively to developing markets and to ensure that those investments correspond with national interests of those countries. Plus to that, countries that are participating in BRICS, they tend to use more and more national currencies in their bilateral and multilateral trade interactions. So some of the countries like us, for example, we met a situation all of a sudden when dollar started to be used as a weapon against us. So that's why we started to pay more attention to national currencies, and this is more advantageous to us. And at the same time, it's more advantageous to our partners. So these are the processes that are going on inside BRICS.
You said the dollar being used as a weapon, and obviously it's against Russia, it's been used as a weapon against China, it's been used as a weapon against Iran, even against Turkey. Would you say the formation of the BRICS was more of an organic initiative, or it was just a natural progression of a reaction to US policy and free-wielding sanctions?
Well, the United States and countries of collective West, as we call it, they're doing whatever they can to preserve their central leadership. But organic processes in the world, they are much more diverse. And so the faster Eastern countries are developing, the less leadership is left in the Western countries, in the Western world. But they don't want equality in development processes. They want to preserve their leadership, thus damaging and jeopardizing national interests of those countries in the East. So, and this is a collapse of interest, and it's a natural process. Gradually, the center of development in the world will be shifting eastwards. It's an inevitable process. Plus to that, Western countries are doing mistakes. So they started to use dollar as a weapon. They start to implement sanctions against Russia, against China, but those sanctions, they are hitting them back. So, and those processes are just speeding up the natural development of East, or as we call it actually, not East in our understanding, but what we call it, well, collective East, global majority.
Turkey is a country that's part of that collective West, at least for the past 8 decades. But Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan wanting to apply for BRICS membership. What are your thoughts on Turkey becoming a BRICS member, becoming maybe a preferred partner? How will that relationship evolve in your eyes?
Well, from one hand, BRICS is welcoming all the countries who are showing interest towards participation and towards taking part in relevant cooperation processes. From the other hand, of course, BRICS, like every, let's say every union, it has a certain potential for membership. And if this potential is overloaded, it will bring, well, certain difficulties to the further process of development. So this is why right now, members of BRICS are discussing the future modality of further participation of new countries. Of course, participation of Turkey is very important for all the members of BRICS. Turkey is a great regional power that plays very important role, even in global affairs to a great extent. So that's why everyone is interested in inviting Turkey in this process. But what will be the modality? Let's wait a little bit until we see a final declaration of this summit.
Would you view it as a big victory if a NATO member did join BRICS?
Well, Turkey's interest towards BRICS is important for us, not Turkish membership at NATO. You know, we have our own relationship with NATO, and NATO is rather our enemy. Right now, NATO directly and indirectly is involved into a war against our country. And NATO's facilities, NATO's military infrastructure, NATO's intelligence gathering infrastructure is involved in the war against our country.
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of pressure put on the Turks, especially over the past couple of weeks, saying BRICS membership is incompatible with NATO, BRICS membership is incompatible with EU candidacy. Do you view the BRICS as incompatible with these organizations?
This is actually a problem of NATO and EU, for example. Every time they tend to say either NATO or nothing. You don't have a right to look into other directions. You have just to stick to NATO and be an untakeable part of NATO. And this is not a case for BRICS. This is not a case for some other cooperation unions that we are involved in. So we think that every country is sovereign and every country has to follow its national interests. If membership in BRICS, if unity with BRICS brings you additional benefits, do it. Do not hesitate. If NATO is more favorable for you, if it brings more gain for you, stick to NATO. But every country has to make its own choice.
Now I want to switch a little more to bilateral relations. Erdogan wants Turkey to become an energy hub. Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to see Turkey become an energy hub. How do you see that process moving forward? Will Turkey become an energy hub, especially for Russian gas?
Well, you know that our two leaders, President Putin and President Erdogan, for a couple of years, they have been discussing an issue of creating a natural gas hub in Turkey. This is an purely economic project that is in interest of Turkey, in the interest of the Russian Federation, and in the interest of future consumers in Europe. Because there are still lots of countries in Europe who want to purchase Russian gas. It's much more cheaper than liquid gas coming from spot market or from the United States. It's twice cheaper, and it's more reliable source. So that's why implementation of this project of natural gas hub is really necessary, and the work is going on expert level, and we hope that coming month will bring some really feasible result for us.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan recently met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and Hakan Fidan's comments were geared around mediating and reopening the mediation process between Russia and Ukraine to end the special military operation and also the grain corridor as well. How are you viewing the current state of Turkish mediation? Is there an opening for a ceasefire in the future or a return to the grain corridor deal?
Well, President Putin has said numerous times that he was open for negotiations with Ukraine, and that we would prefer to solve Ukrainian problem through diplomatic negotiations. And so the military operation is a last step for us after all the proposals that were generated by the Russian side were declined from the West. So, and in these circumstances, of course, we do welcome efforts of all the countries, including Turkey, who are offering their services in mediating the settlement of this crisis. And really, Turkey has spent enormous efforts to mediate drafting of the possible agreement that was made in Istanbul in the autumn of 1922. And really, there was a text ready for signing on the table in Istanbul, but unfortunately, under the pressure of Western countries, including Great Britain, Ukrainians had to refuse to continue this work. So we do welcome Turkey's efforts to mediate. Unfortunately, right now, we don't see any real feasible background for any negotiations. Ukraine simply refused to negotiate. You know, they have a presidential decree signed banning Ukrainian power to conduct any negotiations with the Russian Federation.
How tough is that for peace now? There's a
It
law in
makes
place.
peace negotiations impossible right now at this stage. And about the grain deal, well, it was supposed to be a deal, and it was agreed upon as a deal. When you have a deal, you have some deliverables for all the countries concerned. We were supposed to get some deliverables from that deal.
Has Russia gotten deliverables?
No.
What has Russia
No.
gotten out of the grain deal? What has Russia gotten out of the grain deal?
Well, we were supposed to have some banking services for grain deals reopened, and that were shut down under sanctions, and then so on and so forth. But all of that was refused by the United States at the end, despite the fact that beforehand it was agreed upon. So that's why for us, that deal was a fake at the end.
We're closing in on the 3-year anniversary of the special military operation. And the geography, the map, at least, of the conflict hasn't really changed much of late. How do you view the current state of the conflict right now?
Well, actually, what you can easily do, you can read some military experts from the Western countries, their analysis on the current state of affairs on the front line. And you will see that the dynamics is much more favorable for our military right now. So our dynamics for our military is quite positive. Operation is going on. They have lots of results. What is very important that we have organized a very, very stable process of military production. Our economy is working very fast, and we're producing necessary amount of all the armaments and ammunition for our military. So that provides us with the possibility to continue operation till reaching all our goals.
There's been talk of supplying Ukraine with nuclear weapons. What would Russia's reaction be to that type of delivery or that type of
Well, there was a statement by our president and by our foreign ministry, and also our statements from Kremlin that, well, of course, we consider it this kind of statements coming from Ukraine very disturbing, and of course it will cause an immediate and very tough reaction from the Russian side.
Now, I've been here in Kazan almost a week. I visited Moscow since the special military operation started, other Russian cities as well. And in the West, they talk about devastating sanctions. For me, at least as a visitor, besides not being able to use a credit card and having to pay cash, I don't really see much of a difference. How devastating have sanctions been? Because I don't see much of a difference in daily Russian life.
Well, the government's economic politics proved to be quite effective. And at the very beginning of these sanctions, and we have an unprecedented, in the human history, it's unprecedented amount of sanctions. It's tens of thousands of sanctions against personalities, against companies, against state companies, state sectors of economy, and so on and so forth. They're all active. But despite that, our economy is working very fast. So we are increasing the share of our economy in global stake. We are increasing the living standards of our population gradually and very fast. Our domestic banking system, you mentioned that you couldn't use your credit card, but you know, we are accustomed to banking services that you would never imagine in Turkey or elsewhere in the world. It's the most developed banking system in the world that we have here.
So would you say sanctions have strengthened or at least made it more
exactly,
resilient?
Exactly. This is the point. So we learned how to take advantage of these sanctions. We learned how to produce what was never produced in this country, and we learned how to decrease the production share, so just in order to make it competitive. Plus to that, in a current world, it's very hard to impose sanctions, really sealing sanctions against a country, especially like Russia. So you cut one direction supplies, hundreds of other directions appear at the next day.
How are diplomatic channels with the United States and the European Union or its member states right now? Are the lines of communication still open?
Well, there are very humble technical life of communications, nothing else. But if you speak about real relationship between Russia and countries of collective West, they are on a zero level. And that contradicts with the with the reality, because the reality, full of challenges, demands that we conduct a dialogue in order to answer those challenges. But unfortunately, we don't have this opportunity.
Russian President Vladimir Putin once said, U.S. presidents sometimes come with the best intentions until they're elected, and then men in black suits come and everything's the same. Now, presidential candidate, former President Donald Trump has said that, I will end the war in Russia. Do you feel that he has the capacity diplomatically to be able to end this war if he's elected?
Well, I don't think that there is a single hub that will cure this disease. It will take lots of very, very challenging and serious efforts to solve this problem. And it will take time. I don't think it can be solved overnight. But currently, we see the leadership of the United States that thinks that they can continue the war against Russia using Ukrainians as a tool of this war, and continue this war till the last Ukrainian. This is actually the essence of their position, but it's tremendously wrong. It's impossible to gain a victory against Russia.
I want to shift to Gaza. War on Gaza right now. How is the Kremlin viewing what's going on over the past year, and what type of role is it playing diplomatically in this process?
Well, in order to discuss Gaza, we first have to say that we have to remember the main source of this problem. The main source of this problem was the fact that the relevant resolutions of the United Nations Security Councils were not brought to reality. We still don't have two states, two independent states, Israel and Palestine. And this is the only way of solution of the problem, is to create those two independent states and to ensure the feasible conditions, the viable conditions of those states. This is number one. Plus, we had a Middle East quartet working on solution of the problem, but then there were attempts by the United States to monopolize all the efforts of the settlement. And this monopolization didn't give us a feasible result. To the contrary, it brought us to a situation where we saw more terrorism coming from inside of that region. And as a result, now we're facing an unbelievable and unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and also in Lebanon. And also in Lebanon, we are very much concerned about the civil population that is suffering from what is going on. And we think that all the countries in the region have to stick to a very balanced approach in order not to let this conflict enlarge in borders and then take more countries inside.
How concerned are you by the escalation between Israel and Iran, Israel and Lebanon. Do you see a regional war coming?
It's extremely dangerous, yeah. Well, 3-4 months ago, we were warning each other against spreading the geography of the conflict. But unfortunately, now we're witnessing it. And in terms of potential results, it's extremely dangerous process. Russia is a country, we preserve our contacts, our working contacts with all the countries concerned, with Iran, with Israel, with Lebanon, with Palestinians. And we are ready if there is something that we can do in order to help this crisis to be solved. We are ready to do it.
I want to shift over to the South Caucasus, a very recent five-way meeting in Istanbul. What's the state of relations right now, or at least the progress towards peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia?
Well, two countries are working on the text of an agreement. We hope that they will, there are quite a couple of paragraphs left to be agreed upon. We hope that this process will be ended successfully in coming months. There are some difficulties with the certain positions of the countries. There are, the devil is in details. So, but we do hope that Baku and Yerevan will have enough wisdom to reach a result in coming months or weeks or months. It's up to them. So we're not insisting on anything. We're just standing ready and being ready to give our hand of friendship for them to facilitate the signature of agreement.
One last question. You recently said that about the organization of Turkic states that the Turkic mythology started in the Altai Mountains. How do you view the organization of Turkic states, and do you think it's something that Russia wants to get involved in?
Well, we have Turkic republics inside Russia, or part of Russia, actually. Like we are now, we are in Tatarstan. We have Bashkortostan next to it. We have Altai Republic. So we have lots of places where Turkic people are living, historically are living. And we have places where actually the Turkish world came from initially. So that's why we do share lots of values of Turkic world. It's untakeable part of our culture. Russia is a multi-confessional and multi-national state. We have about 25 million of Muslims living in our country.
A big Muslim population.
So so how can we be away from processes of the Muslim world? It's important, impossible.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, thank you for joining me on Straight Talk.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for this special edition of Straight Talk. I'm Yusuf Aram from the BRICS Leaders Summit in Kazan, Russia. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.